17 goals from corners in all competitions for Arsenal is crazy when you think about it.
You've got two things that happen. You can either go into your shell, or you can either come out and put in a performance. And Arteta actually spoke really glowingly about Martinelli, saying his personality, the way he sort of stepped up to the situation, apologised, admittedly done wrong, moved on from it. And I think the best way was for him to do is talking on the pitch.
But it's turned out that Kai Havertz is the most tactically astute centre forward for a Mikel Arteta team, and it's clear to everybody now. And sometimes absence makes the heart grow fonder, doesn't it? Where he brings it in, turns around, moves it. You think, wow, he has to play more. I think the next question is where?
So you look at that team, like the front three: Jesus, Madueke, Martinelli. That's been 10 changes. You're bringing in those players.
Yeah.
I just think the depth is really there. The concern for me, and you're probably better than both of us speak this, is the kind of movement in the box. When there's crosses going in, he's not there.
It's triggers. So you need to know if Saka goes back on his left foot, he's going to cross it in. Or if Trossard on the other side cuts back, he's going to pull it in. But the fact that at the minute we're going down the line and we're chopping back, we're not crossing it, he's a little bit caught in between.
4 away games in a row is really tough. I think it is the first time an English top flight team has ever had it. So it is a real test.
These players deserve a medal or two, don't they? Let's be honest, what they've done for 3 years. But you still go and do it. And they don't want their careers to be defined by second places.
Hello, I'm Darren Bent and welcome to Inside Gooners, bringing you all the latest news and reaction from the mighty Arsenal. And joining me this week is Arsenal Vision's Clive Palmer and the Sun's Arsenal reporter, Simon Collings. Gentlemen, how are we? Happy New Year. Can we still say that? Is that still a thing?
Well, you just said it. Happy New Year. So Happy New Year to you. Yeah, I'm good.
Good Christmas, good New Year, gentlemen.
Yeah, good. The fixtures were fairly kind for Arsenal in terms of working. I didn't play Boxing Day, didn't play New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and I've just about thawed out from Portsmouth yesterday, so I can't complain.
Well, listen, it's that time of year again where it's obviously thick and fast. The games are coming. Really busy time. Managed to get past Portsmouth in that third round. And obviously we'll discuss as well about the Liverpool game. So we'll certainly that second half, which I'm pretty sure we all weren't happy with. But managed to get past Portsmouth. Clive, what did you make of the performance and what did you make of the squad rotation?
Yeah, well, 10 changes is what we want or what we know we need because we've got a big game coming up. So for me, it was quite nice. But after 3 minutes, it wasn't so nice. At 1-0 down, you're thinking, come on, lads, wake up a little bit. But it was quite nice to see other players and also see their technical ability. And sometimes when it's a bit more of a relaxed game, you get to see players in a different light. I think some of the Premier League games have been so stressful that you're not really recognising maybe the talent that we have. And when you see the depth of the squad, you think, actually, we've got some really talented players here that are not always playing and they're able to show what they have. And so, yeah, I come out there thinking the squad's now deeper, more active, and I really enjoyed it.
Do you know, it was one of those, Simon, as well. When you saw what happened to Palace with Macclesfield and you go 1-0 down so early on, you're going, oh no, here we go again. But it almost, in my opinion, was like scoring so early, the tactics don't change too much because you've still got the whole game. But what did you make of the whole performance from Arsenal and how comfortable it was in the end? Yeah,
I mean, the start of it was really tough. I thought Portsmouth, fair play to them, came out absolutely flying. So a lot of teams we see Arsenal sit deep, make it difficult, and they didn't really want to do that. Even with the injuries, the problems they've got, they were front foot, they were pressing, and the goal kind of came because of that. But I think what we saw, I know it annoys a lot of people, but the kind of value of the set pieces. Yeah. Because when you're struggling and when you're not quite clicking, just to have that ability to turn to a set piece, get your goal back in the game. And then suddenly I thought Arsenal were much better, particularly when that second goal went in. I think we saw, Martinelli was linking up very well and there was spaces there because Portsmouth were pressing so much. So one of those games where you knew that storm was going to come from Portsmouth. You knew they were going up for it. If you could ride that out, you'd get through it. And I thought second half Arsenal sort of controlled the game and were worthy winners in the end.
I mean, 17 goals from corners in all competitions for Arsenal is crazy when you think about it. But as Simon was saying there, and I think he's right, Clive, is that you can't always play well. You can't always play the free-flowing football we know Arsenal can play. So to have that up your sleeve, and I don't understand, and I guess you both can answer this, why more teams don't pay more attention to set plays because they can change a game like that. But Arsenal, for the last couple of seasons, have paid attention to it, and it seems like it's paying dividend.
It's a huge thing that we have. We may not have the 30-goal striker, but we have the ability to score really important first goals and set pieces. And first goals open the game up. I think football is about to grasp this, shall we say. They look at us and think, we need to do that as well. And so but it's all about delivery, isn't it? We've got a number of players now that can deliver the ball into those critical areas. And we seem to attack the ball properly, and not even want to attack the ball with their lives depending on it like we do, you know. And so even though one Gabriel didn't score, the other one sort of did, right? And not the one I was expecting. So, yeah, it's a massive part of our game. And it's an even bigger part when we go into Champions League, because they're not used to that, you know. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Did it surprise you, Martinelli, as you said, there was the one? Because, of course, it all comes down to the delivery. But I thought there were some really good headers from Martinelli, brave as well. Really
good timing. It's like, where does that come from? I mean, he's not a new player, is he? So where's he been hiding that talent?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, really good in the air.
What do you think, Simon, as well, from Martinelli's performance yesterday?
Yeah, really good. I mean, he's obviously had a difficult week, hasn't he? You know, the situation with Conor Bradley, which I think he rightly apologised for, but that's probably might hang around for a few. I mean, we saw the Portsmouth fans booing him, you know, and you've got two things that happen. You can either go into your shell, or you can either come out and put in a performance. And Arteta actually spoke really glowingly about Martinelli, saying his personality, the way he sort of, you know, stepped up to the situation, apologised, admittedly done wrong, moved on from it. And I think the best way was for him to do is talking on the pitch. And yeah, a sort of mad 4 days for him, but I think a really big performance. And someone who's having a really good season after what was a summer where people thought, is he going to go, is he going to stay? I think he's underlined how valuable he is for Arsenal.
Just quickly, I don't like going over it because I think it's been talked about enough, but just quickly about the Martinelli situation with Conor Bradley, while we're talking about him, what did you make of it? And did you think it's been a bit blown out of proportion? Because I understand why people are getting so irate about it, but at the same time, Martinelli's not a doctor. He's not a physio, so he didn't know what happened to Conor Bradley. So it's only now that we now know the extent of the injury where you go, oh. But still, I thought it was a little bit over the top in terms of the pile on Martinelli.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like it when it happened in the instant, and you can understand it. And I think Martinelli was right to apologise. You know, he's anyone who knows him knows he's not that sort of player. I thought the person who spoke best in it was Arne Slot, really. And, you know, when that happened, it kind of already blew up with the pundits and the reaction. I thought when Slot comes to speak, I thought this could really ignite. And he really diffused the situation with how he spoke. He spoke with a lot of measured response to it, understanding. And I think he said it best of all, where he said, I know why Martinelli's done that, because in the game there's so much time wasting, there's so much play acting, that Martinelli's default thought is he's dived there or he's running down the clock. When in reality there's a serious injury, and I think Slot actually has probably diffused the situation more than anyone else could have done, because he's come out and explained it in the way he did. And I think it's one where Martinelli was wrong, he's apologised, and hopefully now I think he'll hope that everyone can move on from it and look past it.
What did you think, Clive?
Yeah, it was unfortunate. I had a good view of that in the ground, actually, and there was a quick throw on, and he was focused on that. When that was stopped, the initial disappointment came out in the wrong way. But hey, look, made a mistake, you accept your mistake and you apologise for it. But the wider point about time wasting in games is a point worth discussing. And there was a couple of incidents in that Liverpool game which maybe created an undercurrent of, we want to keep this game going, particularly last few minutes. I thought Slot spoke really well. He spoke really well in the Anfield game as well about what that game represented. He assessed his games really well, and he assessed this moment really well. And it diffused it, and we diffused it with the apology, end of story, move on. If that was a 3-3 game, all exciting, we wouldn't be talking about that as much. We'd talk about the actual game. The game was quite quiet. Yeah. So that was the event to really hook onto.
Absolutely. Oh, we'll talk about that Liverpool game a little bit later on. But going back to the Portsmouth game, big bonus, Clive. Kai Havertz. Again, later on, we'll talk about Viktor Gyökeres in a different light, but seeing Kai Havertz come off the bench, you must have been happy.
Well, yeah, when he comes off the bench and he starts just strolling around the pitch, knocking it off, and we've all been staying awake, thinking about our centre forward. We're thinking, oh my goodness, look at that. How easy did it look? You know, the way he moves around, the way he associates with other players, he knocks it and they all move in associating with him. Oh my God, that seems so simple. And maybe, you know, in Arteta's tenure, he's invested in Jesus as a centre forward, who's really not always a centre forward, and then potentially bought Kai as a midfielder, number 10, that can play up front. But it's turned out that Kai Havertz is the most tactically astute centre forward for a Mikel Arteta team, and it's clear to everybody now. You know, and sometimes absence makes the heart grow fonder, doesn't it? So if I'd have said a year ago, we need to get paid Kai Havertz, he wouldn't have been so well received. Now it's like, yep, Clive, you're right.
So, what do you think, so?
I thought he did really well. It was interesting, Arteta speaking afterwards, quite how gushing he was about Havertz. He was saying, you know, the last few minutes he was just watching his movement and the way he drifted around. And I think this team has functioned best when it has a striker who's happy to drop in or drop wide. You know, I think Mikel Moreno, for his flaws that he has, one of the things he does do is link the play really well. And I think the team looks best with that. And I think Havertz, of all the strikers they've got, does that the best. There was that one moment towards the end, he sort of dropped in that right channel, played the ball through. I think it was for Madueke. And yeah, just that, it's been so missed. And it's probably for Havertz's standing in the squad and externally among fans. As Clive says, being out of the team has probably made him be appreciated more than he was, because I think people thought he was a good player, but I think now when they've seen the team without him, they've realised, that, oh wow, we missed this guy. And for Arsenal, I think they've been really careful bringing him back, because they know we're now coming into the business end of the season. And if you've got a fresh Kai Havertz for that run, that could be a real big difference.
Do you think it's a classic case as well? And I guess we're all victims of it. When you look at someone's numbers, and again, we'll go back, I'll talk about Viktor Gy&ouml a bit later, but when you looked at those numbers, the 54 goals in 52 games for Sporting, and then you looked at Kai Havertz and you mirror them up against each other, I can understand why Arsenal fans were getting excited about Viktor Gy&ouml, but then when you look at the finer detail in terms of the link-up play from Havertz that he brings, he's a little bit naughty in terms of the way he uses his physicality. He always seems to be there or thereabouts, whether he misses chances or not. Do you think most Arsenal fans may look at that, Simon, and think, do you know what, maybe we haven't given Kai Havertz maybe the respect he deserves, simply for the fact he's not one of these strikers that's going to get 25, 30 goals every season?
Yeah, and I think part of it is maybe the kind of system, a striker in this Arteta system, it doesn't feel like for me that it's set up for someone to score 25, 30 goals. No. It feels like you are a facilitator, a bit like Firmino when he was at Liverpool and you're sort of creating things for other people. I think it's a really hard role to play as well. I think tactically it's very difficult. I think physically it asks a lot of you pressing without the ball, holding the play up. And I think what we've seen from Havertz is the intelligence to do the tactical side, but also, I mean, that guy works non-stop. He leads from the front, he presses, he's wrestling with centre-halves. I remember that game at Newcastle just before he got injured where you can see the sort of physical thing he goes through. So I think that's why now we're seeing kind of everything he did around it. I know you look at the goals, you look at the assists, but some things you just see with your eyes and they'll tell you more than the stats.
And how long do you think it'll be, Clive, before we maybe start to see Kai Havertz introduced a little bit more before eventually he starts for Arsenal?
Well, I think Simon's right. I think we're being very careful with him because the crunch time of the season is coming up.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be carrying anybody in that period. Everything's got to be right. And he's barely started the game in 2025 from a league perspective, and we missed him a long time. Though he's not been injured the entire time, he had a pre-season, but we lost him from the first game of the season. So now he's back. I think we can now see that that's an Arsenal-style centre-forward. The discussion should be, what is a centre-forward for Arsenal? Yeah. I think he's the closest to it. And Viktor Gy&ouml is another type of forward, and I think there's room for both. But at the moment, I think we're more comfortable with the guy that can link, be part of the group, have more touches, be more involved, and offer more tactical solutions. I think that's where we all are.
Absolutely. Well, listen, someone else who got minutes against Portsmouth, Nwaneri. Now, it's a really peculiar, and I'll start with you, Clive, with this one, because everybody knows how talented this boy is in terms of with the ball. But the biggest thing, I think, for a young player is you need minutes. You need to play football. You can't just be sitting there week upon week with no minutes. What will happen, do you think, with Nwaneri? Or what should happen, do you think? Should he go out on loan? Should he stay in and around the squad?
I thought his performance was excellent yesterday.
Yeah, me too.
I think if you look at Ethan and maybe Miles, what's changed for them? Their football environments have changed. Miles was part of a double pivot last year, and whereas now he's been asked to play slightly wider, which he's finding more challenging. Ethan was a 17-year-old right winger that we're now asking to play a little bit more centrally. And he's having to take time to adapt. There's more competition around him, and he's probably thinking, crikey, this has changed. But when you get to see him on the football pitch and that ball on that skidding pitch, the way he brings it in, turns around, moves it, you're thinking, wow, he has to play more. Then the next question is where? Where is simple as that?
Yeah.
We can all say he's got to play more minutes. Then it's where? Because we've got so much talent. So the football environment has completely changed for him. So he's going to have to raise his level. I hope he stays.
Yeah.
Particularly after yesterday, and I maybe flip-flopped on this a little bit, but I don't think that talent should be anywhere else but at Arsenal for now.
A little bit like sorry to interrupt, the Foden situation.
Yeah.
Because for large periods, people were saying Foden's got to go out on loan. And Pep said, no. His best education is here. And you think the same for Ethan?
I really do, and that was almost confirmed by Portsmouth, because you can not play for a while. And by the way, be out of the squad, which must affect in pride a little bit. I'm not even in a tracksuit. And now you come back in and you start, and you could sulk, but no, straight away on it. And I thought he really took his opportunity really well.
Yeah, what did you think, Simon?
Yeah, I think his attitude has been really, really good to the situation been. I mean, it was shown a few weeks, maybe about a month or so ago, where Arsenal were playing a sort of behind closed doors friendly, and Jesus, mainly for Jesus to get minutes, and Nwaneri said, I want to play in the game, I want minutes. I think his attitude, whenever he's come off, he's had these small little cameos, not long, he's been really bright. I thought he was good yesterday. And it is a difficult call to make, whether you send someone on loan. I can see the attraction of it, the minutes. I do also think spending every training session working with Martin Odegaard, Bukayo Saka, players like that, that's got to have a big value. And also for a young player's development, I think for him and Miles, their first season, they come in, Arsenal leaning on them way more than they thought, way more than the two youngsters thought. And now maybe this is a bit of development to tell them, like, look, this is what it's going to be like at Arsenal. You're probably not going to play every week. You're probably going to be fighting with some of the best players in the world. So maybe it's good for them to kind of learn that and grow into that. And for me, I think there is a value that he offers that's different to other players. So if he'd be happy to stay, I would love to have him around the squad, because I think he brings things that other players don't.
Realistically, when you look at the Arsenal squad, and I mean, Clive mentioned it there about crunch time, people like Nwaneri are going to be vital and certainly key. Do you think Arsenal have got the squad now to compete in all fronts? Now, you're talking about semi-finals of the League Cup, Premier League, it looks like it's going to go to the wire, Champions League, FA Cup. Do you think Arsenal, Simon, have got the squad to be able to compete, or maybe one or two of these competitions have to go, well, maybe not two of the competitions, maybe one might have to fall by the wayside?
I mean, I'd be going for as much as you can. I mean, 10 changes yesterday. And you look at that team, like the front three, Jesus, Madueke, Martinelli, that's for 10 changes. You're bringing in those players.
Yeah.
I just think the depth is really there. And you can make big changes and still have cohesion, which I thought was impressive. I think Madueke and White are getting a nice understanding, because they seem to almost be a sort of pair that come in together. Even Marino filling in at number 6, I thought did a really, really good job. So I think they've got the depth to be able to have these competitions. And probably for Arteta, it makes it easier. Because if he's got someone like Ethan, or someone like Noni, or Martinelli who wants to play, if he's got another midweek game where he can bring them in, it's much easier for him. And I really think, particularly that League Cup, I think the FA Cup, I always feel that the crunch time for that comes a bit when the crunch time is the Champions League, the Premier League. But the timing of that Carabao Cup, sort of end of February, March time, to go and win that for this group, to lift a trophy, I think could be a real big springboard for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. We saw obviously Miley Salmon as well become Arsenal's youngest ever FA Cup player. I mean, Clive, I know you watch a lot of the Arsenal Academy. I mean,
I have seen him play, Darren, and at his age group, he's smooth.
Wow.
Very smooth.
Yeah.
And, he just needs time to grow and develop into a centre-back. He's obviously a full-back at adults football, but at youth football, he's a centre-back, very good, very Saliba-esque. And I think it'd be interesting to see what Arsenal do with him, because there was a little bit of chatter to say that maybe Arsenal would give him a Saliba-type route to go on loan and play adult football. For that position, you might need that.
Yeah, toughen him up,
whereas for more technical position, maybe being amongst the group. So the pathway they show for him, that'll be one to watch, actually.
Yeah. Someone who I thought played well yesterday as well, just quickly before we touch on the Liverpool game and talk about that, was Gabriel Jesus. Obviously didn't get on the score sheet, Clive, but he's certainly got something. He offers something now. I don't think personally it's a centre forward in terms of being that guy who can rely on for the goals that I think Arsenal may need at times. But in terms of his all-round play yesterday, I thought he played really well.
Yeah, some of those flicks around the corners
Beautiful,
were really nice.
The pass to Martinelli for his goal as well.
Yeah, really nice stuff. He's just a forward.
Yeah.
Right, and you put him on, he goes out wide because I think he's comfortable there. He's like a winger forward. And he just moves around, which is great when it all flows. But then when you're one goal down, you're looking for a centre forward. Right? And if he's not in the box, people say, well, where is he? We need a goal, So when things are going good and there's a lot of movements, a lot of combinations, he's as good as there is when it comes to combination play. But it comes back to the centre forward, right? We need a centre forward. So yeah, on that regard, he's come back really bright, actually. He's been out for a long time, and he's been good addition. I thought he was finished.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I thought he was finished. He's not finished. I think he'll have a part to play as a forward, not maybe a centre forward.
Well, again, listen, we've got to talk about the Liverpool game now, because I thought it was a game of two halves. I know that's a little bit cliche, but I thought Arsenal first half were comfortable, and then second half was probably the worst I've seen Arsenal play in some time. But overall, Simon, what did you make of the performance? And also, is it 2 points dropped, do you think, against a depleted Liverpool side? Or in the end, you go, do you know what? We weren't great, but we move on. We've managed to get a point. Yeah,
I think it's one of those where in the immediate aftermath, when fans are leaving the stadium, they're thinking, oh, what a chance that was. It would have been 8 points clear, real daylight with City. But then the next morning, maybe when you wake up and you look at the table and think, we're still 6 points clear. You know, nothing lost from a round of fixtures where you're playing the Premier League champions. You've still got the same gap. And also that Arteta, I think, kind of spoke well at the end because he looked at it as the whole sort of Christmas block and those games against, Brighton, Bournemouth, Wolves, and coming out of it, the position they did, I think Arsenal would have taken it being 6 points clear from there. So it felt like a tough game at the end of a busy period. I wasn't seeing the Declan Rice that I normally do in a big game. Particularly in that second half, I think Liverpool did a really good job of making that midfield really compact. Will playing with Havertz instead of a number 9. It was really tight in there. And sort of around the 70, 75 minute mark, I was just thinking, a point here is not a bad result. Take that, get out of there, job done. It's one of those days where it's not clicking, it's not happening, no harm done. But credit, I think, to Liverpool, because I thought in the second half they did really sort of wrestle some control back. But one of those days where Arsenal aren't firing, but then when you look at the table and you think, you haven't done any damage, it's not the end of the world.
What do you think, Clive?
Yeah, remember the Wolves game when we played them at home?
Yeah.
We all thought we were going to win 10-0, remember? And it didn't work out like that, did it? And this was a similar expectation. We saw Liverpool have a few rocky results. Yeah. Now we can get them. But actually, they turned out with a lot of pride. They took out a centre-forward and overloaded midfield and got control of the game. And Simon's right. I mean, at half-time, I came up towards the bars and I heard the commentator say, maybe a point is not a bad idea. I thought, he's right. Sometimes you've got to take it. You've got to take that point and say, no one will remember it if things work out. But Liverpool played the strategy they wanted to play and stopped us, really. And we haven't scored against them in 2 games. But they didn't do much neither. They didn't get a shot on target, so it wasn't a high-event game. No.
I mean, that second half, though, I think was because I expected after the first half, I thought Arsenal would come out second half, as they usually do, really fast, firing. And as you said there, Liverpool, I thought, had control of that second half. But what do you think was missing from Arsenal? Certainly the second half, because when teams press it, and we saw it, I know you talk about levels, but Portsmouth, for instance, they tried to press Arsenal, and Arsenal played through the press really well. That completely stopped against Liverpool. Why do you think that was, Clive?
I thought, I'll be honest with you, I thought the fear kicked in a little bit. I thought it kicked in. It became about what we could lose rather than what we could win.
Yeah.
And it just felt like that. And this is why Portsmouth was quite a nice, refreshing game again. The ball was moving around very, very quickly. I think the fear kicked in and we just stopped maybe taking risks on the day. And we looked at the overall result, looked at the overall block of games. I think we got 16 points out of 18 and we got a 6-point lead. And sometimes you just got to do it. Inside, I'm thinking it would be nice to put them away.
Yeah.
But the way the Champions League is going, we might meet them again, you never know, or another English team. I think we are going to be defined on big games later in the season.
Yeah.
And so we may be seeing them again, so our time with them may come up.
So we've got to talk about it then. Viktor Gy&ouml. I want it to work for him. I'm a big fan of his, but at the minute, for whatever reason, it's just not clicking. I know we spoke a little bit about Havertz, but from Gyökeres's perspective, limited touches, no efforts on goal, ball kind of across the 6-yard box, he's nowhere to be seen. I mean, where do you stand on him and what do you think's gone wrong for him?
Yeah, he's really struggling, isn't he? And I thought he looked low on confidence against Liverpool. And the touches thing for me isn't as big a worry as it might be, because if you look at someone like Erling Haaland, he'll have 10, 11 touches and score 3 goals. The concern for me, and you're probably better than both of us speaking this, is the kind of movement in the box. When there's crosses going in, he's not there. And is that, I can't tell if that's Gyökeres not reading the signals. Should that be the person crossing it looking for Gyökeres? That for me is where it feels like the biggest fall down, because we've said for years with this Arsenal team, then if they had a poacher in that box, he'd score so many goals. But it feels like for me he's just a bit lost at the moment. And whether that's a confidence thing that's affecting him, he's not making those runs. But that is what worries me the most. The touches thing, I never expected him to be a player having loads of touches like Kai Havertz, like Jesus. What I did expect was that kind of poacher in the box to be scoring those goals, and that's not happening.
Do you know what a little bit is as well? I think it's relationships. I think when you play centre forward, you need to know, it's called triggers. So you need to know if Saka goes back on his left foot, he's going to cross it in. Or if Trossard on the other side cuts back, he's going to pull it in. But the fact that at the minute we're going down the line and we're chopping back, we're not crossing it, he's a little bit caught in between. So I think for himself personally, all he can keep doing is getting himself in there. And as you said there, Simon, it's a worry when he's not doing that, because if you're not going to do the link-up play, like if you're not going to play with your back to goal, bringing others into it, then you have to be in and around that 6-yard box as that poacher. And the fact he's doing neither, I think it's going against him a little bit. But even his work rate, Clive, seems to have been a bit of a drop-off as well. Is it starting to worry in terms of maybe he's now second-guessing himself?
Yeah, he stopped moving and when he first started at the start of the season, his work rate down the sides was really, really high. And because he was running so hard and committing to his runs, he was getting the ball. When you half commit to a run, players look at you, they turn away. He doesn't really want that in there. And so he's not showing the same commitment in his movement. I would say to him, just don't try to be like Havertz and Jesus. Be like who you are, a hard-running mobile target man. But if he's not running and he's not getting in the box, then you start to look at the other underlying data of touches and passes and how many times you're dispossessed, and then it becomes the pressure. So he needs to rebuild his game with work rate for me. I think Arsenal need that type of centre-forward. We can't have everybody coming to the ball. No. We need people running away from the ball. But if he's not running away from the ball, then he's not really bringing the value. So I hope it works for him. But at this moment in time, it's a struggle. But there was a time it was a struggle for Kai Havertz. And now he's the saviour, right? So I'm hoping there'll be a similar arc, but I am a bit concerned.
What do you think then for Mikel Arteta? Because it's a difficult situation, right? Because he wants it to work for him, of course. We saw the emergence of Kai Havertz again against Portsmouth coming back on. What does Mikel Arteta do you think? Because at some point, you can't just stick with something for the sake of sticking with it. You're going to have to make a change somewhere. I personally don't think Gabriel Jesus is the answer because he doesn't want to play there, I don't think. What does Mikel Arteta will do then, Simon, in terms of sticking with Gyökeres or trying to get the best out of Gyökeres?
I mean, I think Havertz coming back could actually help Gyökeres in a way. I think as Clive said, I feel like he's played a lot of minutes, probably more than anyone expected because of Havertz's injury. And maybe just having that burden and the spotlight and the pressure taken off him a bit. I think long term, it kind of feels now that Havertz is going to be your guy, particularly this season. But Gyökeres can still have a role to play. You know, I mean, if you got him for sort of 20, 25 minutes, you know, Clive was saying he doesn't want to look there and see Jesus when you want a goal, but you should really be looking at Gyökeres when you want a goal. And if you've got him on the bench, you know, throwing him on with someone like a Martinelli and Madueke, these guys to run at teams. And maybe there'll also be a bit more of a horses for courses kind of game for Gyökeres. You know, I don't feel like the big games, the Liverpool games, are his games. He feels like a space player. But maybe there'll be games that suit him. I do feel like, though, long term, certainly this season, it is moving towards Havertz being the number 9. But they need to find some sort of role for Gyökeres. You can't have a £60 million man not doing anything. But maybe it's going to be kind of that impact off the bench and finding games that suit him. But I feel for the big games, Havertz is going to be the guy.
I think we said earlier, Darren, about relationships is really important because some of Gyökeres' best games has come with Eze quite close to him, you know. And you can see yesterday straight away with Odegaard and Havertz, they're like best mates, and they were playing 1-2s to each other, weren't they? Immediately. And Gyökeres hasn't had that yet. I'm not making excuses for him. There are things he's not doing well. But he hasn't built those relationships yet within the team. Maybe the closest has been Trossard, maybe, Simon, and that little pass on the inside, and he goes in behind. So he needs to build relationships. So when he, just a little movement and he's on his way, you know? That isn't there yet at the moment. It all feels a little bit prescriptive. Yeah.
Do you know it's a bit of a worry for me as well? Looking at his overall game, because, as you said there, Clive, his biggest strength is running behind, right? So maybe you can pick and choose the games, but if he plays against the so-called better sides, he's not really had an impact against the Cities or the Liverpools, the big games. But if you go and play against a lesser side that do the low block, that doesn't suit him either, because that's more for Kai Havertz who can come off the front, link play. So that would be my only worry, is that if you're looking where you can fit him in terms of the games, Clive, it's where does he... Maybe the Champions League games, because I think he's had 1 or 2 really sharp games in the Champions League. But the Premier League, as we know, is like no other beast. I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult to pick and choose in the Premier League what games you put him in for.
Yeah, I think his better games for me have been away from home.
Yeah.
Where
like Burnley, I thought he was brilliant first half.
Newcastle, I thought he was excellent at Newcastle. And I think there's a bit more space, and we go to him a bit earlier so we're playing against unsettled defences. But I do think sometimes if you come up against Konate and Van Dijk, you make one run there, and then suddenly, I think they're quite quick. I think I'll just stay here. And you can't be discouraged by that.
No.
And I think it seems like he's a bit discouraged by the physicality of some of our defenders in the Premier League. And he can't be. He's got to keep going until he wears them down. At the moment, he looks worn down. Yeah. You know, so you just got to keep fighting, keep working hard.
Absolutely. And against Liverpool again, Simon, which players then stood out for you, I thought? Declan Rice second half looked a little bit tired.
Yeah, I mean, it was a difficult night for a lot of people, wasn't it? I thought Zubimendi did pretty well at the base midfield in what was a difficult game for Arsenal to have control. You know, it was one of those games where...
Saliba was good, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was one of those games where I thought Saka, the first half, And I feel like we've had this a lot with Saka this season, where there's kind of 20, 25 minutes where you're like, oh, wow, here he is. He's going to take this game by the scruff of the neck. I thought Keres was really struggling. Credit second half.
I thought it's the best of Keres I've seen him play, actually, defending.
Second half, he really upped it. But it was just moments where you saw the players, you wanted, but across the 90 minutes, I don't think anyone had a game that they would really say this was it. And as I said at the start, I kind of feel like it was one game, maybe too many after a really busy period. And that's probably why 10 changes at Portsmouth was probably just what the doctor ordered. But
you happy with the squad? I know we're in January. It doesn't look like anything's going to happen now. Because if I'm honest, I can't see what areas as well Arsenal quite need. But you're quite happy with the squad and certainly the new signings, the Eze's. If I'm honest, I don't know what it is. I mean, he's a wonderful footballer, as we well know. But you're still waiting for that little bit more. Like when Odegaard comes on, you can quite clearly see that he's got that kind of the ability to take the game by the scruff of the neck, that intensity is the word I'm looking for. You still happy with the way Eze's kind of contributing when he comes on, when he starts games?
We all love the player, right? So I think Odegaard is so comfortable in his role within the team. So if he wants to go right wing, he goes out there and he still gets the ball. When he drops between centre backs, he gets the ball. When he goes out high, he gets it. Wherever he goes, he gets the ball, right? So because he's our technical leader of the team. When Eze stands in position, he's not always getting it. It's almost like he's still settling into the group. His ability on the ball is really, really good. Then you got to say to yourself, where should he play? You know, I think if you draw a line down the middle of the pitch, I think he should be on the left-hand side of that line. I think that suits him better. We've seen him on the right-hand side, and we've also seen Eve on the right-hand side. I think, actually, that suits you better. I think getting him on the left-hand side of that line, wherever he is, and give him the ball a bit more, I think we'll see. We're going to need him down, because our first goal ability, we need someone like Kim to get those first goals that are not set pieces.
Yeah.
So his moment is to come. So
I think as well, Simon, for Eze, it's about relationships as well. I think I've spoken about it enough on the show so far. I think he's still trying to figure out where. I mean, you said about Gyökeres. I think there's a little bit of a partnership. Even with Martinelli, I think we've seen a couple of times him running behind and he trusts Eze to find him. Do you think it's about that as well? But can he get minutes and can he start building relationships?
Yeah, he's still not quite got his best position in the team. I don't know if you asked him or if you asked Arteta where's his best position. And Arteta was interesting the other week. He was saying he actually thinks more about who's playing with Eze than Eze's position. And that comes to that point of relationship, doesn't it? You know, is it best when he's playing with him? If Martinelli's playing right, I want him inside on that number 8 role. I do always think with Eze, though, he is a moments player. He's very different to an Odegaard who's going to run the game, who's a conductor, who wants the ball all the time. Eze is someone who'll score a hat-trick against Spurs and then he might go quiet for 6 weeks. But he's the sort of person in a quarter-final of a Champions League who might bang one in from 20 yards. That's what he is. He is a moments X-factor player, which Arsenal have missed. And I think there just needs to be an acceptance that he's going to have quiet periods. But he will turn up like he did for Palace in the FA Cup final.
Yeah.
And Palace fans, actually, if you speak to Palace fans, they always joke that it says when it gets sort of March, April time, sun starts coming out, good weather's there, he starts thinking, right, OK, I'm going to start enjoying myself now. And so maybe for Eze, that's what it's going to be. And I think he will be a player that will finish the season, they'll look and be like, oh, he only got sort of 8, 9 goals. But you're like, actually, well, there's 3 of them were against Spurs. He scored 1 against his old club. He scored 1 in this big game. I think that's going to be his role in the team, and it's just very different to what we know with Martin Odegaard and what he brings.
Right, it's a massive week ahead for the Gunners as we hit the Carabao Cup semi-final action against Chelsea before a quick turnaround when we face Nottingham Forest on Saturday evening. Simon, team selection, Chelsea, first of all, coming up on Wednesday. We saw 10 changes against Portsmouth. Tough game against Chelsea. What do you do? What are you expected to see from the team selection?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke a lot about him. The big one's going to be Viktor Gyökeres. What do you do with that? For me, I'd be very tempted to stick with Jesus and Martinelli. I think Martinelli obviously scored a hat-trick. Tough to sit someone on the bench after they've done that. And again, coming back to relationships, but his relationship with Jesus, they are so good together. Their understanding. You think of Martinelli's best season, that 22-23 season.
Brilliantly, wasn't it?
When they first had a go at the title, the way those two linked up, Jesus drifts left, Martinelli comes in. I'd be really tempted to keep those two together. You're going to bring back your Sakas, your Rices, your Zubimendis, your Odegaards. And I assume he'll stick with Kepa in goal. I mean, that is a debate he has as well, because we have seen in the past when he has brought back his keeper for a semi-final. I remember him doing it with Leno and Ramsdale around that time when he brought Ramsdale back in. I think he'll stick with Kepa. I know it's back at his old club, but I feel like Kepa's standing and the way he's performed, I think he'll say, look, these are your games. But other than that, I think that you'll sort of see 6, 7, 8 changes. But yeah, Gyökeres and Martinelli in attack, I think those are going to be kind of big decisions you've got to make.
What do you think, Clive?
Simon's quite convincing. I just think the other team will come in.
Yeah.
I just think that's the way it's set up. I think and maybe some of the players that played against Portsmouth will end the game, to save the legs for Nottingham Forest. So that's what I was thinking before Simon said his bit. You think actually that makes a lot of sense. But I think we're looking at the 3 games in a week, and I think it's there 4 away games in 4 competitions.
Yeah.
Stressful time for the squad. I'm sure he's got a plan for all 4 games, and that was step 1 of the plan. And so I see the other players coming into this one. But after a hat-trick, you could be right, Simon. You'd be tough. You go and win the match ball. You don't play next game. So yeah, I think you could be right.
Clive, what do you think about? I mean, we've seen certainly the Manchester City, Chelsea, Man United, kind of springboard their season by winning this Carabao Cup against Chelsea. Now, I hate when teams almost, when you've got the squad, they go, we'll prioritise certain competitions. Where do you stand on the Carabao Cup and Arsenal, obviously propelling them, and certainly for Mikel Arteta, who wants to start winning trophies, right? How important this is for Arsenal's season moving forward?
Yeah, so I was not a fan of this competition because I don't like the 2-legged semi-final, particularly in January now. The Champions League rolls round into January. It means a lot of games in January. But all 4 semi-finalists are in the Champions League, aren't they? So they've got to play the same amount of games more as we do. So yeah, I think we can wear it with this squad. We can definitely wear it. And I think, so for confidence-wise, I think getting that trophy, probably we underestimate winning. We're so used to competing and doing well and getting lots of points. But actually winning, it does mean something.
Mentality, yeah.
It means something to you. It means something to how you feel about yourself, getting a medal. I think it's really important to do that. And so I was completely the other way. Drop this competition, but now we've got no excuses. We've got players not even getting in the squad. So what are we? We can't say we're resting. So we should go for it.
Any concerns about it being Liam Rossini's, obviously, it's not an inexperienced manager, but in terms of at this level, any worries about potentially what you saw against Charlton, what they did to Charlton, or? I
mean, it's going to be a different Chelsea to them we saw under Maresca, I think. I mean, when Rossini came in, I didn't know how it was going to kind of sort of be received by the Chelsea fans. I think the fact that he's had that result at Charlton is probably a good thing before this game. They'll want to get behind the team. I mean, look at Arteta, a young manager coming into a big club. There you go. That's what you've got on your plate, Liam Rossini. But I feel like Chelsea will be up for this. I think we saw with the game earlier in the season, didn't we, that they like to make it physical. They're happy to put their foot in. They're happy to get about them. So I think it'll be a case again of Arsenal kind of, to a more extent than it was on Sunday, but weathering that storm early on from Chelsea, because we saw in that league game that was a feisty game. I mean, Caicedo got sent off, but they were up for that and they will be physical. And that is probably going to be a real big area, that midfield battle, particularly the Rice Caicedo. But that is where Chelsea want to stamp their authority, I think. Because
that's what I was going to say. How do they attack this first leg then, Simon? Because it is, as you said, there's a lot of games in a real crunch time. You obviously want to make the second leg a little bit more easier, with it being at the Emirates. How do you attack this first leg then against Chelsea?
I mean, that's a difficult question. For me, I think you would want to try and go and stamp your authority on Chelsea. I think you can do that. I think you really can. I think they're going to come out hard. I think they're going to want to think, right, this is us at home. This is our leg. We've got to go for this. And there will hopefully be space for you to exploit. I would be surprised to see a Chelsea team come out there in the first leg and think, let's just sit back and let Arsenal come onto us. They're going to want to take the game on the front foot. And I think that can play into Arsenal's hands.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. I think you mentioned that the Kepa, and obviously Kepa for the first goal against Portsmouth, didn't quite cover himself in glory. And David Raya, for me, is certainly in the conversation for the best goalkeeper in the Premier League. Does he go straight back in then for you, Clive, David Raya?
Yeah, see, if we pick Raya, I think it's going to tell us how serious we are. It's almost like an indicator. Kepa's absolutely fine. But there's enough games this month in the Champions League that maybe not have the same value. But I think we need to be serious. We're serious and pick our best goalkeeper. He's had a bit of rest, so... But to be honest, there's not a lot between them when they're in their top of their game. Raya's obviously excellent, but Kepa can also look after the ball. So our game doesn't change. So we can still go back to our goalkeeper, so tactically it doesn't change. But I think it's time to win, right? So if you want to win, pick your best goalkeeper and show everybody that we're serious about winning and don't have any excuses afterwards. So I would go with Raya.
You mentioned it earlier, Clive, and I was thinking Miles Discelli, and a bit more of a difficult time this season in terms of what he did last season. Everyone was like, wow. He's obviously had to deal with a lot in terms of coming back, Calafiori has been outstanding this season, which is why he hasn't got many minutes. Where do you stand on his situation? And certainly, I think he's going to play in this game, potentially. But defensively, he's looked a bit, certainly against Portsmouth as well, he looked a bit vulnerable at times.
Yeah, he's hesitating a little bit in his one-on-ones. He's just standing in spaces. And when a lot of time last year, we sort of built up in the 3 and he was part of the 2 in front. And now he's in midfield. That's where he's grown up as a midfielder. Yeah. So it was very natural for him and the game was in front of him and he'd go and get it. And over his shoulder, people look after him, you know. But now he's outside and he's had to deal with things over his head, 1-2s past him, high sprint positions, and he's having to adapt to develop his game. So his football environment has changed. And so this is a challenge for him, right? So this maybe uncovers parts of your game which are not your strongest parts. What do? Do I just not play? Or do I work on those things and work through it and be more aggressive, be more front-footed and make sure the game is going that way rather than over your head sort of thing. So that's for him to learn. I think that hesitancy will come out of his game the more minutes he gets. And even in this game against Portsmouth, he got better and better and better when the game went on. And eventually took initiative on a quick free kick, which was not part of the Jova game plan, right? he just took it anyway. And that's what you want to see, don't you? Someone that feels that confident again. So I think it'll come back in minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you fast forward then to Saturday, 5:30 kick-off, Nottingham Forest, tough game, Sean Dyche team, Forest desperate for points, trying to pull away from that relegation zone. What are you expecting there? Because it's always a difficult one, I feel, when it's a Sean Dyche team, because I look at Nottingham Forest, they've got good footballers in their squad. I don't think they want to play the way necessarily they played against Villa, for instance, where I don't think they were great, or even against West Ham, to be honest. Where do you stand on the Sean Dyche team, and how much of a difficult task will that be after the Chelsea game?
Yeah, as Clive was saying, this sort of 4 away games in a row is really tough. I think it is the first time an English top flight team has ever had it. So it is a real test. And just how quickly they come all together. We know Sean Dyche teams, what they're going to be and how hard they're going to be. And he's actually got quite a good record against Arteta. And that, for me, I look at that as a tough game. And part of it, me thinks 5:30 on a Saturday under the lights. Forest fans are going to be bang up for that, and it'll be quite a key test of the squad. I think this 4 games will really show us the value of what Arsenal did last summer, because you can have fresh teams going there for coming off the back of playing Chelsea on Wednesday. You could go and play that team you played at Portsmouth at Forest, and I wouldn't be worried about how they would get on. I really wouldn't. I think they've got the quality to do that. I think it'll be physical. I think it'll be tough. We talk about Viktor Gy&ouml's games, maybe against Murillo, Milinkovic, a bit of an arm wrestle. He might quite like that. But it's a game that I think will be tougher than Forest's league position suggests it will be.
Do you know what, Clive? Simon said a really good point there about the physicality. And I look at this Arsenal team now, and there was a time, certainly when Sean Dyche was at Everton, I'd be a bit, have we got the characters and the leaders to step up to that? I look at this Arsenal squad now, and I feel there are quite a few good in size, good in stature, are prepared to do the physical hard yards. I don't think their physicality worries me as much as it once did.
No, players like Marino's showing such great ability on the ball and physically as well. And I agree. I think maybe going away from home is not the worst thing at the moment. It's quite tense at the Emirates at the moment. So going away, it may not be a bad thing. I think I watched Forest play against West Ham. I know they won the game. I thought it was quite fortunate. But it's given them a bit of a points buffer to West Ham. So they can go into the game against Arsenal now thinking a bit more relaxed. Yeah. This is not one we have to win. We've got our win that we needed. So we can now really go for this a little bit more. So I think it will be a physical challenge, but I think we are so suited to that. So if we have the players that we want, I think Calafiori is getting close to coming back, Simon, I believe. Players like that, physically, will really give us something away from home.
And do you think it's a big positive that we play first? Again, you have to take Manchester City, of course. Aston Villa you have to take seriously. Manchester Derby as well, which never ever goes the way you expect it to go. So how important is it then, Simon, that Arsenal do, not even so much the performance, but they get the 3 points, to get that buffer again, to make it 9 points, and then the pressure's all on City again? Yeah,
and it's a change for us, because I felt like a lot over that Christmas period, it was kind of Arsenal having to respond to City going first. And even if that gap is 9 points for, what it is, 24 hours or so, the benefit of having that is a real incentive. And as you say, United, we could do a whole other show on United, what's going on there. But they've got a lot going on. But whoever's in charge for that game, Manchester Derby, if we talk about Forest being up for it, United will definitely be up for that game. And do you expect Villa as well to be pushing as well all the way to the end of the season? I do. Villa are an experienced team. Look at their average age, it's really quite high. And so I think they're going to stay around.
I believe they're looking at Conor Gallagher to come in, which would be a smart loan
really
move.
good move, yeah.
And add some energy to their midfield because they're in Europe as well, obviously. So I quite liked them. I thought first half against Arsenal, I thought they were really, really good, and they worried me, and obviously we took them out. So yeah, I'm not dismissing Villa. I don't think they have the legs for it, but yeah, I'm not dismissing them. But I do think if we do get to the point we get to 8 or 9, it'd be interesting to see how other teams play us. Can we get a bit of aura about us to really stretch away? That's what I'm hoping for.
Clive, have you seen a change in mentality as well? Because, again, we've been here for the last 3 years where it's been, not quite ready yet, not quite ready yet. In terms of the way Arsenal are dealing with these games, the thick and fast fixtures, one week you're playing some of the best teams, other weeks you're playing against sides like the Wolves situation. Have you noted a shift in mentality in terms of the way Arsenal are attacking these games, and maybe there's a little bit more belief there?
I think so. In the Portsmouth game, obviously we went a goal down. The level wasn't high, but we went a goal down away at Bournemouth as well, and I wasn't too stressed. I just feel there's something in the team that says, no, we're going to come through this. And I do sense that. I do think we can manage adversity a bit better. If anything, the thing that worries me the most is when there's a lot of expectation on us, and do we give the performance that people maybe expect? But otherwise, I think so far so good. But at some point, the outside world are going to say, well, it's Arsenal, set pieces, do they win the big games, blah, blah, blah. But we're doing it our way, and we need to be comfortable with that. And this is our way. And once we can get to the first trophy or two, I think this whole thing will relax. Did I say that out loud? First trophy, we're going to get deluded Arsenal. Once we get to the first trophy or two, I think this whole thing will relax and we can go again.
Is that what you think, Simon?
Yeah, and just on that, I thought it was Declan Rice who was speaking the other week, wasn't it? And he was saying how, I think the City game was the day after Arsenal, and he was asked by the reporter, did you watch the game? And he was like, no. He didn't even watch it. And he said, well, I can't really impact it. I'm not going to spend my Sunday sat there watching the game, see what the result was afterwards and what it was. And as it ended up, City dropped points against Chelsea. But I feel like now there is a kind of maturity in this squad that we can't influence what City are doing or what Villa are doing. Just focus on us. Concentrate on what we're doing. Forget about that. And it does feel very different, I think. And the real test will be, and they've had the sort of wobbles around last month or so. But if they go through a run where you go and drop points somewhere and suddenly the noise builds up again, how do they respond to that? And so far, they've responded really well to it. Even look at the Villa game. Go and lose there in the last minute and you go on a run like they did. So it does feel different. But as Clive says, yeah, you'll be just trying to keep calm until that first trophy.
The team are mature. I'm not sure if the fans are. Because I'm barely sleeping.
do you think it's too early to get into the realms of the performance is almost, I wouldn't say irrelevant, but it's about the result, because it's like you want your team to play well, but do you think we're getting to that period now? I know it's only January and it's still quite early, but it's about results. So even if the Liverpool game second half they didn't play well, but they still nicked the 3 points, do you think we're at that stage now, or do you think it's still a bit of a time for no, we still want the performances as well?
I think at the moment it's all about the results, but there are a few more adults in the room now. We've got the 2 centre-backs, we've got players like Rice, Marino. Zubimendi's brought a level of maturity to our play. We've still got Odegaard. Havertz is coming back, another adult in the room. Saka's a very experienced 24-year-old, And Trossard's there, who's really exceeded our expectations, And so, yeah, there's a few more adults in the room that have been through this that make me feel a bit more comfortable, And also, these players deserve a medal or two, don't they? Let's be honest, what they've done for 3 years. But you still go and do it. And they don't want their careers to be defined by second places. No. So I think that hunger will come through.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, listen, I don't like to do it, and I know you don't like to do it. We'll get predictions. First of all, I'm going to come to you, Clive, for the Nottingham Forest game. Prediction. No, sorry, the Chelsea game. What would the score be in that game?
The Chelsea game, I think it will be I think we'll smash them. No, I think we'll... I'm going to say... I think we're going to win it 2-1.
2-1, yeah?
Yeah.
Simon?
I'm going to go 1-1.
Yeah, I think I'm... Do you know what? I'm going 2-1. Forest. I'll start with you, Simon.
I'm going to go 2-0 to Arsenal.
Okay, I like that.
4-1.
Wow! Yeah?
4-1.
Well, and what you based just...
I think we're growing. I think we'll get defenders back healthy. I think we're growing. I think the Portsmouth game really lifted me to see the talent of the team. I think we're growing. I think we're going to really step up on there.
Wow, I'm going to say 2-0. I'd love to have Clive's confidence, but I'm going to go 2-0. Listen, gentlemen, Clive, Simon, thanks for joining me. Well, that's all we've got time for on today's Inside Gooners. Thanks for your company, and thanks to Clive Palmer and Simon Collins, and we'll see you next week.